How to customize Windows 10. There are hundreds of settings that control how Windows operates and displays items on the desktop, and Windows provides defaults for these settings. This video gives suggestions for customizing some of the settings to suit your personal preferences. I'm using Windows 10. Most of these changes will apply to all computers using Windows 7 or later, with some minor changes. You are watching a Tom's Tech Notes video. If you like this video, please wait until you are finished watching it, then click my name, Thomas Wallace, to visit my channel page. A welcome video will play to describe my other videos. Display file extensions. I like Windows to display the file extensions, the part of the file name following the last period. To set or clear that option, double-click the icon for your computer. It might be called My Computer, it might be called This Computer, or This PC. Double-click it, click View, set or clear this box that says File Name Extensions. Here's an icon that shows the file name extension .rtf. If you clear this flag, click it to clear it, notice the .rtf disappears, and it does for all other displays of file names on your computer. If you set it again, they reappear. As I said, I like to display it, so I like to leave this box checked. There is no OK box to check on this window, so once you change it, it affects the display, and you don't have to do anything else. Adjust mouse settings. Mouse settings change how the mouse operates, and there's a setting to find the cursor when it's difficult to see on the desktop. To change mouse settings, click the Windows logo, click Settings, click Devices, click Mouse and Touchpad. This window lets you change which of the mouse buttons is your primary button. Left-handers might want to change the primary button to the right button instead of the left button. These two items control how fast Windows scroll when you use the mouse scrolling wheel. If you have it set to scroll one screen at a time and you activate a window and scroll it, it jumps. That only affects windows that are from the Windows operating system. It doesn't affect things like browser windows and text processor windows. Once you set it to scroll multiple lines at a time, you can set it how many lines you want to scroll each time you move it one thumb wheel click. And 5 works fairly well. So if I scroll it now, I can pretty much control how it scrolls. Of course, if you set it up high, every time you move it, it's going to scroll practically the whole screen. So again, I recommend you set it to about 5. This one, if it has been off, and that means I have to click on a window to activate the scrolling for that window. So if I hover over this window, it's scrolling the last window I clicked on, which is this window. If you set this option here, scroll inactive windows when I hover over them, then whichever window you're hovering over is the one that scrolls when you move the thumb wheel. To change other mouse settings, click Additional Mouse Options. Some of the options on these various windows will only change when you click the Apply button. Some of the options will take effect as you change them. On the Buttons tab, you can adjust this slider if you're having trouble with your double clicking. In other words, if you double click an icon on the screen and it doesn't open consistently, you might want to change this delay setting for how far apart the double clicks need to be. As you make changes here, you can double click this icon to test your change. You'll find that you may or may not need to adjust this to fit how fast you double click. Click lock is for those with manipulative disabilities. I won't be discussing all the changes you can make to the mouse properties. I'll only be discussing the ones that most people would find useful. Again, many of the changes on these various windows, after you make a change, you'll have to click the apply for it to take effect, but some of the changes take effect instantly. If you want to change the speed the cursor moves on the desktop as you move the mouse, click the Pointer Options tab on the window. This will adjust how fast the cursor moves as you move the mouse. I have it set about in the middle so that I know that I'm only recording part of the screen, but if I move the mouse about 3 or 4 inches, the cursor on the screen will move from the left side of the desktop clear over to the right side of the desktop. That's the speed I like to use, so it's faster for me to move the cursor around on the screen, and I don't have to pick up the mouse and move it across the mouse pad to get the cursor to move all the way across. Experiment with that, see what you like for it to do. This change takes effect instantly. So if you move it, it does affect without clicking the apply button. As I said, I like it in about the middle position. One other very useful option on this screen is this one. If you have trouble finding the cursor on a cluttered desktop, if you have this checked, as I do, whenever you press and release the control button, 2 concentric circles appear around the cursor so you can locate it on the screen. Sometimes it's hard to see the cursor. If you uncheck it, when you press and release the control button, as I'm doing now, it does not cause those circles to appear. As I said, I like to keep it checked. It's very handy to have those circles appear around the cursor. And to save changes you've made on this screen, click Apply. If you click Apply, the changes are saved and the window does not close. If you click OK, the changes are saved and the window disappears. On the Wheel tab, there's some other options to change how fast it scrolls. You can experiment with this if your mouse has a tiltable wheel. It supposedly will adjust how fast the scroll occurs either direction as you tilt your mouse wheel. But my mouse wheel does not have a tiltable setting. And again, on the ordinary vertical scrolling, here's how to adjust the display settings. We'll close this window. We don't need it any longer. I haven't really made any changes that I want to keep, so I will just close the window and this window. Here's how to adjust the display settings. My screen recording program doesn't record these display changes, so I can't demonstrate the changes. I can just describe them. Changing the screen resolution will change the size of everything displayed on the screen, including text or pictures in Windows. To change resolution, right-click a blank area on your desktop. Select your video card's control panel. I have an NVIDIA graphics card, so this is the control panel for that card. There are many things you can change on this screen. We're only going to talk about a few of them. Changing the screen resolution, click here. I am using 2 monitors. If you're only using 1 monitor, you'll only see 1 here, and you won't have to worry about selecting which one it is you want to change. I do recommend 2 monitors. It makes life a lot simpler if you're working with more than 1 display at a time. It tells me things like which connector on my graphics card that this monitor is plugged into. This is my primary monitor. I plug it into the HDMI connector. This monitor is plugged into the DVI-PC connector, and it is to the left of my main monitor. Here are the different resolution settings you can use. I would recommend you leave this set at the highest setting, which is the recommended setting. It says native. Your monitor may have a different setting here, but I would recommend you use the one that's native. I wouldn't worry about the other things you can change on this page. And again, if you change this resolution, it will change the size of everything on the screen. You can change the size of text or pictures in a browser window without changing your resolution settings. I'll open a browser. All common browsers will allow you to change the size of everything displayed in the browser by pressing Control plus or Control minus. I'll demonstrate. Control plus, Control minus. Those changes are remembered if you close and reopen the browser. However, if you restart your computer or turn it off and then turn it back on, the browser will revert to its default settings that you have defined for the browser. So you can change the text size and the font that the text is displayed in on all browsers. But those changes, if you make them properly, you can remember them. If you make changes with the Control Plus and Control Minus, those changes are not remembered. Not remembered after you restart the computer or after you turn the computer off and on. They are remembered as long as you haven't restarted your computer, even if you close the browser. I want to point out that word processors or text editors have commands in them to change the text size. Here's how you change the display brightness, contrast, or color. You probably only want to change these if you're very unhappy with the video appearance or if you're trying to match two monitors. Before you adjust any of these settings, write down their values in case you screw them up. On your video card window, click Adjust Desktop Color Settings. Again, for two monitors, you have to specify which monitor is you're adjusting. You also need to specify whether the color is being controlled by the video card or whether it's being controlled by programs. So you have to check one of these two circles depending on whether you want the graphics card to control the settings or not. You can't change these settings and see a change unless you're using the Use NVIDIA settings. I can't demonstrate it because when I make changes, I see them, but they don't record with my recording program. There are various settings here. I'm not going to go into all of them. If you have two monitors, you'd like to use them both, I highly recommend it. It lets you have a lot more flexibility in how you use your computer. You can drag things back and forth from one monitor to the other very easily. You can have two windows open at the same time. You can still read everything on both windows. The way to set up two monitors, first plug them in, and you got to make sure you have the right connector. My graphics card has an HDMI connector and a DVI connector. And there are adapters so that the DVI connector will work on the old VGA connectors from older monitors. So make sure that each of your monitors has a connector that you can plug into your video card. And of course, make sure your video card has two monitor output connectors, which all the newer computers do. Now here's how you set them up. You click Set Up Multiple Displays. You should plug both your monitors in before you select the screen. So once you've plugged them in and you select this screen, they'll both be displayed here. And the one that is active and the one you have told Windows about will be checked. So if one of the boxes is not checked, check it. That'll make sure Windows knows you have two monitors. Once you do that, this display will allow you to organize which one is on the left and which one's on the right. My larger monitor is this one, and it is number 1, and it is on the right of the smaller monitor on my system. The asterisk means it's the primary display. If you wanted to have this one be the primary display, you just right-click it and select Make Primary. You can adjust the position of the two by just moving it around on the screen. For instance, if I wanted my primary display to be on this side, I just move it over there. And back and forth. This is the configuration I'm using. You can also have them be displaced up and down with respect to each other by just dragging. So that's the way you set it up. I like to adjust it so that as I drag something from one monitor to the other, it more or less doesn't jump up or down when it crosses the boundary between the two monitors. There is an option to show or hide all the desktop icons. I'm hiding them at present for this video. Right-click an empty desktop area, select View, select Show Desktop Icons. Click it. Now the icons are shown. I'm only recording part of the screen, that's why these things are cut off here. So again, right-click, select View, check or uncheck Show Desktop Icons. Now I'll show them for the next demonstration, because what I want to demonstrate is there's a way to change the size of all the desktop icons without changing the resolution of the monitor. Click a blank area on the desktop once with the left button, then hold down the Control key and rotate the thumb wheel slowly. What's happening is if you rotate the thumb wheel to the top, the icons are enlarged. If you rotate them to the bottom, they're made smaller. You want to be careful with that because if you make them too large, the screen will automatically rearrange, and there's no way to undo that change unless you simply drag each icon around to rearrange it. So only do that if you really need to. I like to have the icons fairly small so I can get a lot of icons on my desktop. And again, if you want to hide the desktop icon, just right-click the desktop, click View, check or uncheck Show Desktop Icons. Thanks for watching my video. If you like this video, please click my name, Thomas Wallace, to visit my channel page to watch my other videos.